Look to the south, and all you see is eyes. Look to the west, and just a sea of eyes. Look to the north, and there is ice as well. Look to the east, it's just an icy hell. Look to the south, and all you see is ice.
My name's Matthew Knowles, and I'm the script writer and lyricist for Shackleton. Well, the idea of Shackleton was not mine originally. I joined the Rickmansworth Players a few years ago and worked quite a lot with Simone. And we just got talking, as one does, in the rehearsal period. And Simone had said to me that he'd always wanted to write a musical. Simone then gave me a copy of Alfred Lansing's book on Shackleton called Endurance. And then lockdown hit. And suddenly there just didn't seem any reason not to start working on it in earnest.
And the icebergs are tight. Here, at the end of the world.
The story that we're focusing on is the Endurance mission, the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. And actually the very first scene in our show is the sinking of the Endurance. The ship drifted for months until finally it was crushed by the ice. And then you have these 28 men stranded on the ice, with no way to get back to land, and really no ship. So that's actually our opening scene. But then in order to show how the mission came to be, we flash back to and fro from London and Antarctica to see how it affected the people back at home, how it affected the wives of some of the men on the trip. Some of the scenes that take place in the show, they took months and months and months. They were stranded on the ice for nearly a year. And those are the really challenging scenes, the ones that actually we're trying to show months of inertia and being stuck in, say, 15 minutes on the stage. So that is a real challenge. When I was working with Simone, actually what came first was the idea. The idea for the scene. Simone knew what that was. He would start thinking of possible musical ideas for it. Then the lyrics came. I don't just write a complete lyric and say, well, that's it, that's exactly how it's got to be. I write a sketch. I would then adapt the lyric and the idea to fit the music that was there. But I'm absolutely fastidious about the rhymes have to be perfect. I'm also trying to be very, very careful about the stresses that are in the words land on the right notes. I think that is incredibly important when you're writing for the musical stage. It's not poetry, because poetry is designed to be read and designed to be thought about. With a musical, the audience are hearing it for the first time, and it needs to make sense. I think if a phrase is slightly wrong, if a stress is slightly wrong, it throws the audience off. You can only suspend disbelief so much. If the characters don't make sense, and they're not singing as you think people would, then the whole thing falls apart a little bit.
Did they agree to this short-sighted scheme? Why set out to sea? Why give their lives for one foolhardy dream?
So my favourite character in Shackleton, I'm very fond of Sir Ernest himself, Sir Ernest Shackleton. It's a lovely journey that his character travels. It's from the beginning, there's a song in the very first scene which he sings once the ship has sunk, and he sings about what kind of man he is. And that was very much a theme for me right the way through. What kind of man would do this? And then we follow him right to the end, where obviously he really did save everyone. He had that endurance to save his whole crew. But right at the end, when he's saying goodbye to everyone and we're finding out how everybody's stories end, he does just a short reprise of the what kind of man, and I just think it gives a lovely circularity to his character, because he did, even though he said, I'm done with travelling, I'm done with adventuring, of course he wasn't. He went off. It was something within him, And I'm very fond of that.
That's not the fools get behind. Some also ran. No, I will never be that kind of man.
When you see your work performed for the first time, it really is magical. That, to me, that's the magic of doing it. You sit at your table, you sit at your desk at home, and it's all in your head. It's all just there. You get it on paper. I always liken it to doing a sculpture, making a scene from a musical. You do have to hammer it out. It's not just straightforward. And then you have to hand it over. But what's so wonderful is that it has then a life without you. You hear people talking about it in rehearsal. You hear people talking about a song that just was entirely in your head. You didn't even know at the time you wrote it whether it was going to make it to the show. And suddenly other people are talking about it. Hearing the work sung is quite astonishing. To me, that's the most magical thing about it, is that it takes on a life of its own. Whatever happens now, in a way, it doesn't matter, because it's out there, it's alive, it's a living thing on its own. And that's very special.
And all his wonders, safe with God, may you be. May the Lord help you to do your duty.
I think there's a couple of reasons. I think, firstly, it's a new musical, and I think particularly in the climate that we have had over the past couple of years, where live theatre hasn't been able to happen, a new British musical is an exciting thing, and I think everyone should try and support them. That's where the future of our theatre industry lies. The second reason is for Shackleton. It's an amazing story. It's so heartwarming to see what he went through, what the men went through, and that actually they survived. It's a story of survival and of effort, and I think that makes it worth coming to see for Shackleton and all those real people who went through that. And I think the last reason is to please come and support this wonderful cast.
Here at the end of the world.